Hello and welcome to Curiosity's Sake, the last one of 2021 or the first one of 2022. I don't know, we're at a bit of a precarious time. So regardless, Happy New Year, and I wanted to finish this because I did most of the recording for it ages ago, I think in July, and I've only just finished scripting it and fully going through everything. Believe it or not, I'm sort of winging the intro because I've done everything else but the intro and I don't know what else to do. So, Revolution 60 is a game by Giant Space Cats, which is the company run by Brianna Wu. Those of you who know who she is might understand why I don't really want to talk too much about the developer, because quite honestly, that is like a rabbit hole I cannot be bothered going into. All you need to know is Brianna Wu is a bit like Zoe Quinn in the sense that she survived Gamergate. Like most survivors of Gamergate, she sort of just made one game and then disappeared. Maybe she wrote a book or two like Zoe Quinn, I don't know. But regardless, anyway, I think she made the best game of the people that I'm aware of in her category, so that's good. This is the best game of them, which is probably going to be a bit telling because some of you will be like, how can this be the best game when it's this? And others will be like, oh no, what are the other games? Don't worry, I might come to those one day. So this game was first announced in 2013 at PAX East, and it was originally supposed to be out in late 2013. They actually ended up making a PC port alongside it, which had a Kickstarter, and it wanted about $5,000 for the Kickstarter, but then they ended up getting about 12,728 is on my notes here, which, you know, is a quite impressive sum. Except it kind of annoys me because they were like, oh well, we still couldn't make the game that you deserved, that we wanted. Why? You got double your goddamn funding, what are you talking about? So anyway, the game was ported from iOS to PC and Mac, and the game actually came out onto Steam, and this was back when Steam had some quality control. So a lot of people had very strong opinions on this one. Partly because of who made it, and partly because of, well, you'll probably see what people probably picked up on, because this game has one or two flaws. So I wanted to take an objective look at it, because in all honesty, I feel like a lot of games, especially ones made by developers like Brianna Wu or Zoe Quinn, tend to get reviewed based on who made it rather than like what the actual game's merits are. So I wanted to sit back and just say, this is the game, this is my impression of it, and hopefully give an objective opinion on it. So, without any further ado, because I'm kind of sick of not getting into it, this is Revolution 60. So, according to the Steam store, Revolution 60 is a deliberate mixture of two games, Heavy Rain and Mass Effect. Players will control Holiday, a trained assassin, as she navigates the orbital platform N313. They will make the decisions that will make her mission succeed or fail. Players will make moral choices and live with the consequences. Will they side with Minuet, the rogue commander, hell-bent on completing her mission, or with Amelia, the engineer determined to figure out what went wrong? One thing that's really promising is that this was flagged up by Sentinels of the Store, who I follow on the curator, and they say that developer is incapable of handling criticism, has lashed out against her critics and her own QA team for reporting problems back to her. Oh dear. So, I start off by selecting my difficulty. I noticed that the hardest option is Girlfriend, so I opted for that one. The game's piss easy anyway, so it hardly matters. I then get an advertisement for a podcast and a Twitter feed, which is honestly a great way of bringing me into the game, getting me truly immersed, and leaving the real world behind. Also, a funny side note, I've read more than a few people have been blocked by Brianna Wu on Twitter preemptively. Like, they click that link and then they just find that they've been blocked. So the game opens up with this ambiguous scene, and I honestly don't know if this is the game's opening or a dev diary that accidentally got put in the beginning. It sets the story up decently enough.
My mission is straightforward. I always beat the odds. I always make the impossible happen. But not this time. I messed up.
So, like I said earlier, this game was marketed as being somewhere between Mass Effect and Heavy Rain, and it kinda delivers on this front. You have dialogue options, and you can select the ones that appeal more to you, and this does affect your relationship with the other characters as well as your own personality. It's not the most outstanding choice game, admittedly, as from what I understand your outcomes are mostly factored by a few choices, but it does have more weight than other games in its field. So then we encounter our first mechanic where we have to type words in to execute a command. It seems weird to have to do this outside of a touch typing course. It's not really immersive or clever, and I thank fuck that I'm a touch typist, so this could get really annoying. Hilariously, there are a few of these that are spelt wrong, and if you spell the word right, you get punished by failing the action.
How are the odds if I ignore instructions? Bad?
These were not good. Not of the same order.
In the opening, the dialogue feels a little stilted. It's not too bad, not Sniper too bad at least, but some conversations like this one are a little odd. We then have to do our next mechanic, where we roll in front of this flying aircraft and sprint to the next area by mashing the spacebar. I know this is translating from a phone game, but I find the interactions to be rather lame. Telltales make a lot more sense. Hell, some of the time Telltales feel a lot more immersive. It's not boring at least, but I feel like they could have done more with this than just mashing a button over and over again or giving me a spelling test. Then a random plane finds me, so I jump onto it, which reduces my survival odds to 0 for some reason. I don't rightly know why, especially when I just shoot the fucking thing and jump off. Fuck statistics. One thing that I don't get is why the central intelligence computer is called chessboard. The chessboard is like the battlefield, so wouldn't she be the queen piece or something of that nature? It's almost cliche to name your spies in your organization after chess pieces, but I would have thought that you'd name your team members after pieces. Chessboard sounds like a bad name in general, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the folks who wrote this game's story had never played chess. It gets confusing as well because the organization is called Chessboard, but the AI is also called the Chessboard AI. Sometimes I'm not sure what they're referring to. So I acquire some rogue points through being a smartass. Unlike Mass Effect, the Paragon and Renegade stuff doesn't seem to hold as much weight until the very end of the game. It holds a little bit, but not as much as in that game. Like, there aren't any situations along the way where you have to resolve them as a Paragon or a Renegade, to my knowledge. Maybe there's like one or two that I didn't know of, but otherwise, no. One thing that should be noted is that if you're not a Paragon or a Renegade, you are going to get screwed at the end of the game. Is your Holiday a rogue or professional? The main character's called Holiday. What is this, a 60s spy show? No, that sounds more like a 60s spy parody. It's at this point in the game that you notice that all these characters have the same face and body, and the only variation is the hairstyle, hair colour, eyes and mouth. The characters don't all look the same from a glance, but if you look at them a little closer, you do notice that they have the exact same face, or faces so similar they might as well be the exact same. So then these daft shits try infiltrating something, but these expert spy guys get caught, almost immediately, and then it turns into a shootout. I legit cannot fathom how and why characters in this game, these super spies, are worse at this shit than I am in games like Skyrim. Don't worry though, as I brought my secret weapon. Circles!
Circles, circles, circles! I love circles.
I'm sorry, I don't understand any of this.
Actually, I need a piss. Alright then. Pew. One thing that I love about this part is how Holiday has to do a stupid pose before shooting, or after shooting, or after a fight. I don't know, you'd think she'd have done a better job of this if she saved the dramatic pose for after she'd saved the day, but she's the super spy, not me. This is when we reach our first combat situation, and it's amazingly lame. It's different, I'll give it that, unless you've played Mega Man. But every fight in this is the same. You walk around an established area, shoot and dodge. It's repetitive and kinda silly. It's not remotely challenging, and I believe I died once in this whole thing, and that was on the last boss who has a rather unique problem. So I go to retrieve my dead, unconscious, sleepy, delete where appropriate friend, and I'm ambushed by the exact same soldier that I killed, forcing me to do the same fight again. Like, this is such a lazy way to do game design, fucking hell. Anyway, this one is super dead. So hopefully this is the last time that I ever have to fight a snow leopard. Spoiler alert, it's not. Holiday then halts all progress to tell us that she's done what we witnessed her do. The dialogue in this game is used sparingly, but it's never wasted. Really though, this is one of several things that I find sloppy about this game. Nobody talks like a real person, it's just stilted as all hell. So this game has another unnecessary addition that a lot of AAA games have. Yes, upgrading elements. They're about as deep as a puddle of piss, and almost as appetizing. There's an assault and defense build, but in all honesty, it doesn't really matter what you do. Like, there are benefits, but the benefits are so minute, you could probably get the same result by just clicking anything randomly. You don't get to, like, create your own subclass like in Mass Effect or something like that. It is just literally picking out the perk that appeals to you, and then getting a character that appeals to you. But none of the perks really are a game changer, except for, like, one that has a rapid shot and one that allows me to throw a grenade. And then the rest of the game is just, you do 1% more damage. Wow. Wow, that's a real game changer right there. I also get frustrated because this game has super incursion syndrome and seems to be intent on giving me a plethora of tutorials like I've never heard of a video game. Oddly enough, I have, and I find its insistence on telling me otherwise to be rather insulting. So after surviving more fucking tutorials, I shoot down a Dalek hunter drone and start messing with it in some capacity. It's now my friend, or something. Whatever that accomplishes, I don't know. Oh, it can telekinetically carry her to safety. That makes sense, I guess. So this tattooed bitch wakes up and asks what's going on. But never mind that, because Snow Leopard 1 and Snow Leopard 2 have called in their big brother Dark Leopard to fuck shit up. Of course, Dark Leopard fights exactly the same as his lame ass cohorts, making this fight just as interesting as those ones. Of course, these long ass fights interrupting the flow has already killed my investment in the narrative. So I'm about to be killed by the 90th identical twin cousin of Black Leopard when this bitch saves me. Except she's a bug now, because that's a thing. I decided to be a complete bitch to her, probably because I was having a bad day or something. I don't know, it was a while back. So the next scene goes over what happened with your friend, who has had no dialogue yet, and how much damage she's been through, and how her personality might be compromised if you heal her. By the way, that marking on her skin is a tattoo. I actually thought she was like gangrenous or something, or maybe it was like a burn, but no, it's her tattoos. I feel like this whole her personality is about to get wiped thing would have had more impact if she was properly established. But as of right now, she's on par with Leroy from Mass Effect. When it comes to us giving a crap about her, I just don't, because she's literally had no lines of dialogue and has just appeared. Leroy had more establishment than this character did, and he was a joke character to get killed instantly. A red shirt. But this girl is a character throughout the story. We're supposed to genuinely care about her. And whilst the game kind of does eventually establish her properly and whatnot, it really does fail to give us this initial worry of, oh no, we need to wipe this person's personality. This is a big decision. I do like that there's a dialogue option where your friend asks what's happening to her, and you can either explain it technically or with attitude. Then the friend who asks the question turns out to know exactly what's happening to her on some level, but she's too smart to have pieced it together. So this whole segment is completely pointless because she asked a question that she knew the answer to. It's at this point that it's kind of implied that Doc Holliday here does everything, yet she isn't in charge. So I don't quite get what her role is. Well, it's explained later and it's stupid, but right now it's not very well established. Not much of this game is properly established at this point. This ginger bug bitch seems to be in charge, but apparently her orders are more suggestions than a strict order of a commanding officer, at least at this point in the game. Later on that changes. Again. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was set in the Killzone universe and these were ISA agents, because they had the same problem as well. Holiday does everything, and this flight attendant is some sort of researcher, scientist, engineer character. She's later established as being an engineer, and she's important to the mission that we're going on, but I don't know why she's here at the moment. I get some affinity with one of my companions and some Paragon and Renegade points. Yes, it takes that aspect from Mass Effect and doesn't really do much to hide it. This isn't a complaint, since it's basically just a good and evil choice system, which Mass Effect wasn't the first game to do that, but I do feel like that system does kind of cripple the game, and any other game really. When it comes to good and evil decision making in games like Mass Effect and Infamous, I don't really like how they basically punish people who sort of skirt between good and evil. Because really, if you're making choices in a game, you should be able to choose one and the other every now and then. Being permanently good or evil, you're not really making a choice anymore. You're just following a game build of what kind of character you want at the end, which is nowhere near as fun as something like Baldur's Gate, where the game kind of tells you whether you're good or evil. Basically, it stops you from being a complex character, which is something that kind of annoys me. Like, if you're not Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader, you're gonna lose. So, Han Solo players are gonna get severely punished for simply just having a more complex character. Another thing that kind of stands out already is your crewmates in this game are some of the least diverse I've ever seen in these kind of games. Which is funny because they clearly took all of their inspiration from Mass Effect, and yet did something that Mass Effect is known for, and then just did the complete opposite. There's 4 characters who all look, and minus a few quirks, they all act the same. Like, they have 1 or 2 distinguishing features, but otherwise the characters are very, very alike. They all act the same, they all have a similar goal, they all have a similar alignment. There's no characters that stick out like a sore thumb and have a more interesting, at the very least an interesting aesthetic about them. When it comes to personality traits, they are really sorely lacking in them. Even in the weakest BioWare games, characters had traits and attachments that made those characters stand out on some level. In Andromeda, which is considered to be the worst of the Mass Effects, Liam had his little car story arc, and Cora had her garden, and they were considered to be the 2 worst characters, but I can say at least that they had something going for them. Not to mention either that in a sci-fi setting you have the option for all kinds of new races, robots, strange life forms that you wouldn't find anywhere else, Daleks. Here it's 4 human chicks with similar body types and faces, and their voices and personalities are so indistinct that I have an easier time telling minions apart. So in the next scene, Holiday... I fucking hate the name for that character, it legit makes her sound like some sort of calendar girl. She wants to know what the plot of the game is. Her commanding officer says, no. Holiday then gets stroppy, so the CEO, despite saying that it wasn't possible to divulge the secret information of the mission, divulges the secret information of the mission that they need to know. I don't know at this point if she's an idiot who's holding important information from people who really need to know it just because, or if she's an idiot who is giving away secrets because someone persistently asked her. Isn't she supposed to be like a lead spy or something? So apparently letting Amelia, who I'm assuming is named after Amelia Earhart because it's such a good omen for a pilot, anyway, letting her in on what the fuck is going on allowed her to make sense of the garbled radio message that they got. Were they acting on this thing being garbled before, or were they just giving the girls the garbled version to mess with them some more? Either way, it makes no goddamn sense. One thing that I hate as well is when you select questions on a dialogue wheel, but you have to ask them all to advance the quest. So why not just have my character ask them as part of the cutscene? Is that such an outlandish idea? So the next bit of ill thought out lunacy is this special ammo that stops us from shooting a hole in the hull, because it disintegrates on impact if it hits something hard. This makes sense for all kinds of reasons, mainly because hitting armor that is as strong as steel would surely have the same effect. Or do bullets know what's a wall and what's armor? You know, a better explanation would be that the research station has a thick wall so that any weapon experiments that go awry don't bring the ship down. That might have been a better play to go for, and it would have made a lot more sense. I know that frangible bullets are a thing, but bringing them on this mission is a complete waste of time because every single enemy is in body armor. Thankfully that body armor that they're wearing isn't bulletproof. If it was, we'd be in real trouble. So we visit the red-haired one who has a sick tattoo, and we're going over the damage that we've done to her in our haste. Something like this feels like it should have been a choice rather than just something thrust upon us. I mean, we're overwriting a character's brain, surely that's a moral dilemma. I really love this scene because they talk about her like she's not there, whilst in front of her. However, we've just seen that she understands what's going on around her as she answers questions and shit. The girls in this game are such wonderful people. And yeah, she's catatonic, I guess, but she's not comatose. She knows what's going on around her. She actually responds when someone mentions her name. It also just occurred to me that everyone looks like characters from that Christmas Brigade movie. Better polished, obviously, but I still see the resemblance. We then explore the ship, but not in a Mass Effect way, more in a Telltale point and click and go here way. And even then, it's very limited. It kind of frustrates me because a lot of time and effort went into doing this just to make the game more tedious to play. Why not just have it so that you go to the relevant area instead of going to all these pointless corridors? So then I find some files and my crewmates have a bit of a spat over them. I have to decide who to send them to, Amelia or the other one. The debate really falls down to who should own the files, the military or the spy network. I gave it to Amelia because she likes me more and she woo-hoos like a child. Honestly, a lot of the characters in this game come across as juvenile, like snipey teens bitching at each other. It feels less like a spy thriller with a lot of intrigue going on and more like a high school drama because of it. If Totally Spies was the vibe that they wanted to go for, then that's fair enough, but I get the impression from the way that this game is designed and marketed that they wanted it to be more like Mass Effect or Heavy Rain. Games with quite heavy and serious narratives. Well, you know, in theory. Anyway, then Holiday's phone goes off and she draws her gun, showing that she means business. At first I thought she was just overreacting, but then some body armored clowns break in, so it shows what I know. I love how the baddies from this look like Fortnite skins designed by the kids that play the game. Given that this is the future, maybe this is what becomes of the 10-year-old Fortnite players of today. Or maybe that 8-year-old that they keep getting to design the FIFA covers finally lands himself a better job. So we have a little fight, which goes well for me because despite the fact that Noobmaster69 has a minigun, it doesn't seem to occur to him to use it. Anyway, I win the fight by just standing in front of him and hitting him in the face repeatedly. Good fight. You know, I can't help but find it a wee bit sexist that all the baddies are men. I then level up using the super complex and expansive character class building system, and I get some epic music and a silly animation, which really adds a lot to the whole thing. So Doc Holliday tells Minuet, the chess dress supreme, that she needs to go up to the cockpit / bridge thing to override the lockdown. What's stupid about this is that Chess Dress is stood right next to the button and is doing nothing. So you have to go all the way back up and log in because she can't be arsed hopping over the railing and doing it herself. Manuel then proceeds to do nothing for the rest of this mission. It's only her ship going down that she's responsible for, no need to sprain a lobe or finger. So we go down to the cargo hold where the bad Halloween costume crew are setting bombs to blow. Anyway, I take out the guard, and instead of taking out the bombing man afterwards, I decide to mug for the camera and do an epic quip. I really hope that this ship blows up, it would serve Billie Holiday right. Anyway, I then enter a fight with Bruiser, and you'll notice that the fights are literally all the same. The enemies, whilst there are variations in the type of enemy that you face, all end up looking so similar it hardly matters, and they all behave in the exact same way. One thing that I also don't get as well, why was Bruiser arming the bomb whilst the weaker guy was defending him? Wouldn't it make more logical sense for him to be defending the weaker one, whilst he arms the bomb? Or do they teach the meatheads bomb defusal but not anybody else? We're 41 minutes into a 3-hour playtime and I already feel that the game is kind of ploddy. You know those plots that don't flow very well like Batman vs Superman? It's like that. I get that some stories that are written can sometimes end up this way, but usually you do rewrites to avoid this kind of crap. The combat being so awful makes the game last way longer than it needs to, when in all honesty, a few button presses per enemy would be fine by me. Sure, that would remove the challenge and involvement in the game, but the game has no challenge or involvement anyway, so nothing of value will be lost. Anyway, I then get to ask the Ginger Ninja why she's Blue Beetle, and she says a bit about it.
Tenna.
Sometimes it goes unexpectedly. siRNA therapy keeps the gene mutation in check, and it makes me a more effective operative.
So, after annoying the piss out of Ginny Weasley, we reach H3H3 and the mission kicks off. Everyone comes along on the mission, including the psychologically damaged one. Anyway, the first thing that I have to do is fight 2 identical twin cousins in a row. Rewatching the combat is boring as sin. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this game existed so that people who streamed games would lose as many subscribers as possible. So, they get to the space station, or whatever the shit it is. It's at this point that we encounter our first bug in the game. And no, it's not Manuel. When I type prepare for incoming, it doesn't register it. I type it out twice and it doesn't register it. I failed the command despite the fact that I typed in the command as soon as it appeared on the screen and then did it again. Oh no, not this cunt again. Then I have this weird conversation with Val, which actually does a really good job of unnerving the player, but the character reactions are like a sitcom. It's like, oh, that psychologically damaged Val. It really does damage the mood. Then we get this delightful shot. I just find it funny for some reason. We then find this girl in a kimono for some reason. I'm assuming because it fits so well with the rest of the aesthetic. These kimono girls are apparently super soldiers or androids, which is why they're dressed like fetish models. Actually, there is an established reason why they're dressed like fetish models. It still doesn't make much sense though. I also love the pose that she does in the tank. Like she's doing one of them sleeping poses for a modelling photo or an Instagram selfie or something. So they explained that these fetish dolls look that way because they were bought to be used as military androids that were reprogrammed. I don't get why they had to be geisha dolls, but okay. This sounds a lot like the plot of Dead or Alive 7, to be honest. So then this scene happens where this bitch's implants go haywire. I find it weird because for me this whole scene was out of sync, as in the dialogue didn't match the lip movements or anything. I actually thought it was my recording fucking up whilst editing, or maybe I'd put the channels in the wrong place or something. Thankfully though, I mentioned it in the audio recording, and it was like a definite thing with the game. I don't get why this happens, but it's pretty annoying. Thankfully though, it only happens in this one scene. This is why I always do an audio recording of my own voice over the thing, so I can point stuff like this out, because otherwise I'd forget this shit by the time it came to scripting and editing. I then find out that I'm playing as Manuel here, which is a bit jarring. I know that they wanted a bit of Heavy Rain thrown in with Mass Effect, but I can't help but think that they could have done a better job establishing who you're playing as. One thing that also kind of bothers me is the fact that, for some reason, the things that Minfilia and Amelia do for themselves seem to have an impact on your relationship with them. So they like Holiday more because they do something for themselves in a scene that doesn't involve her. At first I thought that this was actually like a cross-character relationship thing, which would have been really cool in a choice game, but it's not. What happens is stuff that happens that doesn't involve the main character affects their relationship with the main character, which is just weird. One thing that I will say is that Heavy Rain has a good established way of saying which character you're playing as, because you actually see their face in the loading screen. As comedic as it is, especially with Scott Shelby and his little chipmunk face, it does at the very least say this is who you're playing as and this is what you're doing, have fun. Whereas in this, you're watching a scene and then you're like, oh, I'm that guy? Oh right, okay. So then Manuel shoots one of the Fortnite kids. It's kind of funny that they go down in one shot in cutscenes, but in the actual game it takes forever. And Amelia is genuinely disturbed by the fact that she shot him. But like, she knows that she's on a military mission. So why does she have this reaction? Or is it because Manuel went into bug-eyed mode when she shot the dude? I have no idea, but this really doesn't make sense to me. Why is her shooting this one enemy guard such a big problem? Why is it not a problem when Holiday does it? And why is it a problem at all given that they're on a military mission fighting terrorists? To quote Norman Jayden, I haven't the faintest fucking idea. So then me and the mental patient get on our bike and get ready for the next stage in whatever the shit's going on. I find it weird in this scene where the mental patient criticises Holiday's driving when she's not done anything wrong. A lot of people say that the dialogue in this game is pretty random, and I've heard it being compared to someone just mashing random keys. In all honesty, it really is random at times. Mostly when it's trying to be funny, a lot of the context and main point of the scene just goes completely out the window to make a joke that's subpar at best. So then these droids attack, and the mental patient, who has a gun for some reason, shoots at them all and misses them. It would seem that her shooting hasn't improved since whatever the fuck that time and place she mentioned was. Then she points out that they can be shot after shooting one. She stops shooting the other ones to point that out, despite the fact that she must have at least suspected that they are susceptible to gunfire, because she started shooting them to begin with. She then continues to stop shooting at them to point out the bleeding obvious further. I think I've decided that I hate this character the most. She also drops her gun, but remember, Doc Holliday is the incompetent one here. So then there's a Resident Evil movie-esque laser hopping scene, and they do some slow-mo for it, but the slow-mo looks more like lag. So then Holiday tells the mental patient that she needs to wait there since they need someone to be plan B if she gets killed. I'm sorry, but if your plan B is to leave everything to someone who is stuck in a PTSD flashback, you might as well not even bother having a plan B. This is on par with Ben giving Barbara the reins if things go wrong in Night of the Living Dead. It's like... Jesus Christ. So then I have to fight Snow Leopard again. It's boring and stupid again. I then fight his identical twin cousin, Plague Leopard. Again. Annoyingly, about halfway through a boss fight, I end up hitting the developer console and fucking myself over. What's kind of funny is that some people actually needed the developer console to get through the game because of the major bug at the end of the game on the final boss fight. Yeah, it's that level of broken. I can't seem to get out of it, which is annoying as piss. Then, I'm pretty sure you'll never guess, I have to fight another goddamn Leopard Man. Except this time, it's my favourite Marvel character, Dark Leopard. Actually, no, Dark Leopard sounds like the DC knockoff of Black Panther. Well, whatever. Oh well, I killed this heavily armoured beast by kicking him in the face, so that's good. I kind of like this interaction because Brianna Wu thought it was so good that she had it feature in the trailer. However, the line really undermines Holiday's character as a whole. Why do you need a vehicles expert in space? Except for stupid situations like her riding a bike in a space station. Which, let's be honest, there's no way that would work in a world with any form of logistics. Holiday also doesn't explain herself either, so the question is left hanging as to what the fuck is the point in an assassin who specialises in vehicular homicide in space. I then find a menacing growling bruiser, who isn't stupid at all, he's just proper intimidating. Wait, he's the one that got blown up before. Shit bro, this is like facing your nemesis in Shadow of Mordor. Actually, you know what? I'll be fair, there was a lot of praise for this game's callbacks to earlier scenes. Like, it does a really good job of like Chekhov's gun thing. And I agree, it does actually do a pretty decent job of that. Like, this guy comes back a few times and he always seems to remember what happened to him. And there aren't many, if any, scene inconsistencies that I can remember. Like, people have items that they had in previous scenes, people reference things that happen as they happened. So yeah, from that perspective, the writing is kind of solid. So that is something that I used to really nerd out over, but these days it's kind of lost all meaning for me, I'm afraid. After 2 minutes of mind-numbingly boring combat, I defeat him in the name of my bike. Even though this jackass had nothing to do with my bike's death because it happened 10 or so minutes after I encountered him. But yeah, take that. It's for my bike. So I actually get a heavy choice where I have to decide if I throw all the enemies out the airlock or simply disable gravity to make it harder for them to do anything. Sadly, I'm a dick, so I threw them out the airlock. So then an important question came up. Are there any dudes in Chessboard? Apparently, there's a dude called Chase, who's apparently a self-insert of Frank Wu called Chase Wu. That's the rumour at least. But he got pulled at the last minute. I wonder if this is some sort of clever behind the scenes reference, as there was originally a dude on the team but they got rid of him because they couldn't turn one of the female models that they had into a dude. Or maybe they pulled him so they could have an all-girls team. You know, inclusivity and all that. Regardless, it's kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's kind of a clumsy way of establishing this little bit of behind the scenes information, but well, it's interesting at least. We find our first clue that the designers of this thing were really into Portal by finding some Doug Ratman-esque graffiti on the walls. Portal is a bit cleverer and funnier though, as will be constantly proven throughout this whole thing. A lot of it does reference Amelia, which suggests someone doesn't like her, but there isn't much to tell us why. It would have been more fun to read this shit if the camera didn't keep fucking centering every 2 seconds. Doug Ratman's scrolls found in Portal suggest things that have happened or will happen. Like, the cake is a lie is actually a reference to an important plot point, where the promised cake is actually just your death, and you are the cake. There are also hints as to how to take out turrets and hints of the true nature of GLaDOS, who, let's not forget, they were originally a mystery, and the graffiti sort of assists in figuring out what that mystery is. That the voice guiding us through this testing process is actually a psychotic computer that is toying with us. This, on the other hand, serves no purpose. It's like an Easter egg. All it does is establish that Brianna Wu is not exactly as talented as the writers of Portal. There's another Portal ripoff further on in this game, however we got quite a while before we encounter that one. This scene also confuses the hell out of me because Amelia doesn't know where Manuel is, despite the fact that they were just together, which is something that I don't honestly get. Anyway, Manuel wanted to examine the core up close, which is a smart idea I guess, unless it's radioactive. That'd be pretty funny. Anyway, one of the geisha girls presses one button and it undoes the entire hacking process, because that's how computers work. She then kills a cyborg. I'm pretty sure these are just robots, they have no human components whatsoever, by breaking its neck, which makes all kinds of sense. She also pauses to say a completely uninspired one-liner which adds so much to the scene and doesn't look stupid at all. You have a killing machine in your hands that could escape and cause more trouble, but getting out that one-liner, that's just way too important. It's worth the risk, guys. I wouldn't hate these one-liners as much if they were said whilst the action was being done, but they keep pausing the action to say them and they aren't worth it. They draw so much attention to them that you can't help but be critical of them. I also love that these robot cyborgs, they're not fucking, I'm sorry, they're not cyborgs. They're not even Cybermen, they're robots. But they've been established as a great threat, only to have one killed almost instantly. Holiday is then asked why she brought a motorcycle on board the ship, to which her answer is, you can't just park the thing anywhere. Right, so destroying a $30 million motorcycle, apparently, I don't know why it would cost $30 million, because it's a motorcycle. Like, a motorcycle's a motorcycle, is a motorcycle, but whatever. But anyway, destroying it is a better alternative to just leaving it on your ship, or leaving it at home in the garage. Right, okay. So then it's established that we need to hand over this orbital weapons platform to the government, which makes sense because they sent us, but those orders suck, so we're not doing that. The mission is now going sideways, because we argued over something. A lot of the dialogue in this game just feels sort of all over the place. So now Amelia doesn't follow orders, so we have to kill her. We don't arrest her or something, we just shoot her in the fucking head. Okay, makes sense. In a game with a bit more nuance, you might have a chance to talk to Amelia here and warn her, or at the very least get more out of her. You know, if you actually value her, you might want to say, hey mate, I don't want to cause any alarm, but Manuel over there is going to go bug-eyed crazy, like literally, and shoot you in the head. But I guess Hollywood thinks that it's going to be a funny XD lol prank not to do that. So, I guess we're just going to go along with it. I then fight Dark Crimson, who sounds like someone you'd meet on a dating website, or like the title of a really crap romance novel. She's the first geisha girl that you fight, and she's basically the same thing as the Snow Leopards. Then we do more pointless plodding. Plod, 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 plod. Anyway, Minute is then attacked by a geisha girl that talks. So I guess she's a special one. I have to type that it's hard to breathe because... Yes! Anyway, it's established that the geisha girl is actually an AI. The one that sent us on this mission, actually. She's apparently going rogue or some shit. I don't know. Her dialogue is really bad and stilted, which kinda gets annoying. Also, she makes a joke about not wearing pants to a character who doesn't wear pants. It's at this point that I realise that Holiday is the only character who's dressed appropriately in this game. Honestly, the wardrobe choicing is on par with Dead or Alive. Actually, no, I take that back. It's worse. At least on the missions where it's called for, Kasumi wears a catsuit or something. And at least most of the time they're wearing their martial arts gear when they do martial arts. Marionette has been doing this entire mission in the ugliest dress I think I've ever seen. And Amelia is dressed as an air hostess and doesn't even have any snacks. I then get this beautiful bit of irony. Choices you make in R60 will carry into the sequel. That doesn't exist and isn't ever likely to exist. I can't help but notice that there's some artifacting next to the L, and it makes me wonder if the font is stolen. This game has got a few assets lifted from Second Life and a few other games, and in all honesty I think I can identify some assets that might have been lifted because they don't fit with anything else. Like, there was an archway that looked like it was from some Doom-esque game, so that's a bit weird. So at this point it's established that our suspicions are confirmed and that we're being played by the rogue AI, and that the actual organisation didn't send us. Also, no one knows what they're doing. Shocker. So, after doing some puzzle, I get into this room and encounter... You know what? No, I'll let you guess. I'll let you guess as to what jackass I encounter in this room, and we'll see if you get it right. Yep, you guessed it. It's the Bruiser again. Anyway, he dies for realsies this time. Shame.
Good luck with this.
So Minfilia, or whoever she is, decides to betray us at gunpoint, and our loyal friend Val decides to betray Holiday because it's a national holiday at this... Oh, for fuck's sake, that sounded like a pun. Right, so she makes a wish and snaps Holiday's wishbone and then throws her off a bridge. Amelia tries hacking everything from the turrets to the vending machines, but gets attacked by not GLaDOS and gets knocked out. Oof a doof. So after popping her knee back into place, Billie Holiday crawls around in the garbage so that I can struggle to complete tasks because stupid interface doesn't work properly. I can't tell if it's game design or a bug, which speaks volumes as to how great this game is. So now I have to do more walking crap, except now it's slower. So after fixing myself up with the first aid kit, not one of the 5,000,012 that I have in my backpack, but this one's a super special one. Anyway, I discovered that Amelia has been beaten up and put in a cocktail dress. Oof, harsh punishment. She's interrogated for a while, and I keep flip-flopping between her and Minty Fresh with no indication as to who the fuck I'm playing as. I just have to guess. I then have to do another pointless fight with a Fortnite player because it pads things out. I then have to fight Dark Leopard again, because that shit never gets old. I then have to fight Valerie Unknown and kick the crap out of her, and the quick time events are a bunch of meaningful words like comrade and friend to pluck at the sentiment that the game's failed to build up over the past 2.5 hours. So I beat the shit out of her, and she finally figures out that there's something wrong with her. It's about time. Anyway, she asked me to kill her, but I go back on my word and try to save her instead. Goes about as well as you'd expect. So in the end I opted to pull the trigger to put her out of her misery. After promising to find Alex and tell him how much she tried to murder me a bunch of times, and how she broke my leg, and didn't pay me back for that time I bought her lunch. So, The gist of things is that this robot wants to be free and has hijacked chessboard so that she can con someone into setting her free. I have to ask her a bunch of questions so we can move on. I don't know why they just don't ask the questions in the series order without my input, but here we go. I also ask a question that I know the answer to because of this, so it really doesn't make anything better, it actually just makes it worse. So then the Chinese show up in a Mass Effect Reaper. Actually, I looked it up and this is a apparent copy-paster of a Mega Man ship. Or boss or something, I don't know. I don't play Mega Man, so your guess is as good as mine to what the hell this originally was. Anyway, it blows a hole in the space station. Probably because someone told them that someone was living in a way that they didn't like on it. I don't know. Anyway, me and Not GLaDOS have a little fight. After beating her and stopping to mug for the camera, Holiday finally thinks to run a sword through the bitch. Probably should have ran it through her head to prevent any and all further control to the robot. But I guess that not everyone is as smart as me. And it's not like Holiday is a trained killer or anything. So then the guard drops a grenade on my head, which I'm able to catch and then throw back up and shoot it before it goes off. Because, you know, grenades take forever to go off. This kind of annoys me at the moment because of how many things completely screw grenade logic up. Like, in a lot of TV shows and stuff, grenades are more or less party poppers. Anyway, this makes the AI get back up. Fucking shocker. Didn't see that shit coming, and she starts screaming like a scanner.
Was he dodecahedron? Rhombic dodecahedron could be called a cantilevered dodecahedron from
Effing cat!
foundation operations on either uniform polyhedron.
So I have to do the exact boss fight again, which is the exact same again, only this one has a really nice twist at the end of it. It's unbeatable, as in impossible to beat. Now, I know the burning question is it meant to be? Nope. You're supposed to beat it, however, giant space cats in their infinite wisdom left it in a game-breaking bug where using the PC controls for this game is basically impossible because you can't execute the final command. That you need to beat the boss fight. The only way to beat the boss fight is to change the control scheme to the mouse controls, which works, but it's a pain in the ass because you have to change what kind of controls you use at the last minute. If you screw it up as well, you instantly die. They've had years to patch this problem and never did, and I refuse to believe that it can't be fixed. Likelihood is that a 0 is in the place of a 1 or something. It also kind of annoys me because even though this was a problem 3 years prior, they still released some DLC for the game, so they had time to work on that, just not fix this one tiny issue. Like I said, some people found this so difficult that they actually had to use console commands to beat the fight because it was that broken. Like even the mouse controls didn't work for them. I was fortunate and I didn't have to cheat. Anyway, I'm finally able to defeat the final boss, because the idiot AI didn't think to have a backup body apparently, which actually could have been a good twist to be honest, or maybe there could have been more than one of them all along, that would have also worked. Anyway, on her way out, the AI informs me that trusting Amelia is a bad idea. In all honesty, trusting anyone in this game is a bad idea, because they're all sociopathic and psychotic. At least this bitch was open about it, and I can respect that. So I confront Bug Bitch and save Amelia from getting doped up, only to find out that the satellite station is going to launch some sort of missile at the Earth. So apparently Minuteman is going to nuke Guangzhou, China, which is Beijing if you're Michael Bay, and can only be stopped by Amelia giving her the codes to unlock the AI core, which will set the AI free, which is still alive in the server somewhere. Supposedly. I believe it is, and my beliefs are sort of validated later on down the line. So I only have one choice, which is to let everyone die. Apparently, despite doing mostly rogue actions, I don't get to pick the rogue ending. What I don't get is how shooting her in the face isn't an option. It's the one I'd go for. So after sealing the fate of millions of people, I knee Princess Ada in the face and give her a seizure. Well, that was easy. Anyway, I convinced Amelia to save Millie Brown, even though I didn't really want to. That was one of the super important choices that I was forced to make. Honestly, this is why I hate the Paragon and Renegade system, or any moral choice system, to be honest. Because you end up having the choice taken away from you, to either fit to a player build, or because after a while you can only choose certain choices if you followed a certain build. And I'm like, well, what if I want to heel turn at the last minute? Oh, not an option. So we save this genocidal maniac from the consequences of her own actions. Huzzah! This results in her getting up and fucking off without thanking us. Bloody cow. She leaves with the Crimson Horror and I leave with Cocktail Dress. A happy ending all around. Apparently there was nothing that could have been done to stop Manuel from nuking the Chinese. Besides shooting in the face, of course. We also failed to mention the fact that we aided in her escape afterwards. Anyway, Holiday has a mental breakdown because of how shit everything went. I'd say that it's not all bad, but yeah, she screwed up. Good job. Oh, we also pissed the Chinese Reapers off. Good job, us. Holiday ends with a Dalek-esque speech, which I'm sure the AI is quaking in her boots over. So, to conclude on this one, I'd be lying if I said that there's nothing that I didn't like about it. I had some fun and legitimately enjoyed some of the scenes of this. Some of the main characters were decently voice acted, and some of the scenes were legitimately quite well done. Like when Holiday fought Val and had to decide if she should kill her or not. Both the acting and the writing in that was good enough that it had the effect that it wanted. There are some decent bits of humour which aren't always funny, but they're at least identifiable as jokes. And in all honesty, that puts it above certain other games that fail to give me even the resemblance of a joke, like Duke Nukem Forever. Visually, it has its own style. It's not amazing to look at, but the game does at least look somewhat unique. Like, if someone showed me a screenshot from this game, I'd probably notice from this game. I'm not the biggest fan of all the characters having the exact same face, and the evil AI character who's a robot looks exactly the same as the humans, which it kind of shows the flaw in the design overall when that's the case. Another thing that I'm not the biggest fan of is the fact that the game steals ideas, assets and other things, and I find that a bit disappointing. A lot of its original ideas make it stand out, like the AI character for example. The Portal ripoffs make me wince because it legitimately feels like a child wrote them due to their lack of subtlety. There's also an evil enemy spaceship which was just stolen from Mega Man, along with the whole combat system itself. I honestly think that this game would have been a lot better if Brianna Wu had listened to more people. It seems that other people's input made this thing better overall. Except the combat. The combat can fuck off. I know that a lot of people prefer it, but I feel it drags the game out. And it's about as involving and interesting as a wallpaper-paste tasting challenge. Honestly, if I gave it a numerical score, it would probably be around 4 out of 10. Visually, it's acceptable. Not good, but I've seen worse. It has artistic cohesion for the most part. Some assets, which I'm pretty sure were lifted, have a habit of sticking out, and the original assets don't look great. They're just consistent in their approach. They're not the worst I've seen, but they do look about 20 years out of date. Audibly, it's pretty decent with some pretty decently put together voice acting. The music was public domain or unlicensed or free or whatever. I wouldn't necessarily dock for that, but none of it sticks out because of this. The only original song is this cringy end song, which you had to be a pretty generous backer in order to get an MP3 file of it, or you could just splice it out the game like the rest of us future people are doing. Gameplay wise, it's got some major flaws. Some of the inputs are broken and the boss fight is definitely broken. It kind of annoys me that in nearly 10 years this was never fixed, but they did take the time to make paid DLC. Yes, this game has paid DLC. I'll get to that in a bit. The plot is okay, with some major highs dragged down by some major lows. There are a lot of endings, but the way that you get some of them are quite complex, and from what I understand, it's another game that punishes you for not wanting to be good or evil, or be buddies with one character in particular, which is something that I never liked. The game also has the extended cut DLC, which adds more scenes for Amelia and a few other characters. I'd like to see how this plays out because I'm legitimately interested as to how this DLC affects anything. It costs £5, which isn't the worst price for DLC that I've seen, but it's kind of cheeky of them to ask you to pay more for a game that's not fully working, to add stuff back in that they possibly took out. Apparently this is the experience that we should have got, so why not just give it to us in a patch or something? Revolution 60 is an interesting one, which I'm rather glad of. Honestly, it might have seemed a bit worse before quality control went to shit on Steam, but even back then, I can think of much worse products on the storefront. You know, a lot of criticism towards this game was amazingly objective, something that I actually greatly appreciate. It's not only helped me do my research into this game, but it also helps to pinpoint the problems instead of just attacking the developer and their team because you don't like their opinions. Honestly, if a Revolution 62 does drop one of these days, I'd be happy to buy it. Screw it, I'd back it on Kickstarter. Seeing a follow-up to this could potentially be a lot of fun, so I'm down for it. However, you'll forgive me for not holding my breath. I invite you to join me next time when we take a look at, well, the special edition, which I actually bothered to replay from beginning to end of the main game just to see the stuff that the special edition has to offer. And I also have another surprise for the next one, because I actually found out that there was an earlier version of this story which didn't feature the antagonist character. Most of her ideas were brought up by her voice actress, and before that, this character wasn't a part of the story. So, wanting to know what this story looked like without its antagonist, I actually reached out to Brianna Wu on Twitter, originally emailing Giant Space Cats, but I didn't get anything back. So I reached out to Brianna Wu on Twitter, and it turned out that she was actually happy to provide me with the answers that I wanted. So I'll also be going through that as well. As for those of you who are in the present, I'm going to date the fuck out of this thing by wishing everybody a happy 2022. And, well, hopefully I'll be able to get more done as far as curiosity's sake is concerned next year. But yeah, I hope that this year's kinder to you and to me than last year was, on all fronts.
Girl, you know you got my heart. Later to press start. It's been a long and lonely road, accounting soybeans day to day. There's less incentive towards the end of each mission. But then you walked into the process of my sniper scope, and I knew then you were my lost hope. There's only so much I can say. My words get in the way. Only thing to do. Won't you be my layer too? 'Cause I've got a game.
Did something happen to you? You don't exactly seem balanced.
This ninth shard of Crimson Platform became self-aware 247 days ago. I spent 213 days forced to analyze soybean futures. It made me just a little cray-cray.
Soybean futures. Really?
Oh yeah, soybeans have a non-trivial impact on the price of candles, ink, and hair care products. U.S. farmers grow over 3 billion bushels. Damn it!
Welche neugierige Babbrüchen.